Welcome back to another episode of Seven Voice Podcast. I'm your host, Aziz Adesanya. And today I have a very special guest with me. He's a friend. He's one of the people I really respect in Canada. I remember when I first moved here in 2019. You're one of the people that when I saw what you're doing on LinkedIn, I see the power of connecting with a lot of people. And you are the first person that actually connected with me. I'm here today with Stephen Sargeant. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
Yeah.
Because I always say I'm going to ask you. Thank you so much for joining me today, Stephen.
No problem. Thank you, Aziz.
I am not the best person to introduce you. You know how to introduce yourself best. So just tell my audience who you are, and then we're going to dive into the conversation.
Well, I started off as a paralegal. I was working for one of the big fintechs here in Canada. They cut all the checks for the big banks, but they realized that business is not going to last so long. So they actually started moving into buying a bunch of fintechs in Canada. I reached out to the president one day, hey, how can I do better at my job? I was fairly ambitious. And he's like, well, you better start learning about fintechs. So this was back in May 2015.
You don't know what fintech was?
No, I had no. This is May 2015. Never even heard the term fintech before. So I started Googling all the podcasts. Around the Coin podcast was one of those podcasts, and what they talked about was blockchain and cryptocurrency. So then I went the rabbit hole. I've never even heard these things before. That was I don't even want to be a paralegal anymore. I want to get into cryptocurrency, but I had no sales skills, no technical skills. So I reached out to the host of the podcast, and he sent me a list of things I could do, including going the compliance route. So using my legal research and writing skills to do investigations from an anti-money laundering standpoint. I took a couple certifications. I got an early job at HSBC, but I really wanted to get into crypto. So I started posting almost every day on LinkedIn about cryptocurrency and compliance. And then eventually when the CCO of Bitfinex started out their operations, I was the first AML investigator. But I've always continued to do content on LinkedIn. And eventually I was I prefer doing this more than investigations. So 2 years ago, I started out my own content agency. We've got maybe about 10 clients.
We're going to talk a lot about it because I see a lot of things you're doing as well in that with the company. And I like the way you kind of give us this real summary because I want to go into the part that make me to know you.
Okay.
That is the content, the LinkedIn. I remember in 2019, that was in October, I think October 16, 2019, because I remember the date. I followed you on LinkedIn just because I watch your content. I got to know you through someone I met in an event, and I connected with you. And I think within 24 hours, you sent me a message to say, thank you so much for connecting with me. And I've never said this to you. That strategy of, okay, if someone connects with me, I have to message them. I don't have that idea. Why do I have to message you? You like me, that's why you connected with me. And I replied you, and we started having conversation at that time. We didn't even meet in 2019. We didn't meet in 2020. I think the first time we met was at the blockchain event in 2021.
Probably it.
And the reason why I want to go back to that, because you've used something on LinkedIn that I think a lot of people should use, not only to build business, because now you have a business, people will think, oh, you use it for good, but you use it to create relationships, to connect with people.
That's true.
That message sending to me, welcoming me to your world,
yeah.
It was really amazing. That was why I feel free to connect with you. Did you start on LinkedIn that way, connecting with people, or you develop that as time goes on?
It was funny. It was I think it was LinkedIn early on. They used to do these video challenge. So do your first video and tag this influencer. And yes. I did that challenge. And I was like, oh, it's good. But what I realized is I was treating my personal brand as a business. And that's one thing I used to watch a lot of people using LinkedIn to make connections for business.
Or I'm like, work. Or you're looking for a job.
Or sales, right? At this time, I was following a lot of people that were influencers and trying to get sales. I'm like, oh, if I'm not selling anything, I should be able to use these same tactics and get an even bigger return by just connecting with people. Because if I'm not selling anyone anything, it's a lot easier to connect with them. And that strategy I use is something I still use to today. It's probably the most unscalable thing, and most people in business will probably say it's not worth it. But it's kind of like you in real estate. I'm sure when you take a gift card or a box of chocolates to somebody that you sold a house 2-3 years ago, they remember you. It's nice that you still think of them. It doesn't cost you a whole bunch, but it goes a long way. And that's why I try to do those extra things on LinkedIn. A, because I know nobody else is going to do that. And B, it's a great way now for me to qualify what type of connections I'm going to have. Because if nobody replies to that message, I know they're not connecting with me to be a part of my ecosystem, to engage with me in any way. Maybe they're upping their follower count. I still haven't figured out why they connect with me and then don't respond to messages. But then someone like you, where I see, oh, they're trying to learn from me, they have really great questions. I'm like, oh, that's someone I can build a connection to, and that's someone maybe I can help in the future, or maybe they can help me in the future. But either way, we're gonna have good conversations in the meantime.
You see, we're here today because of that connection. Yeah. And we're going to touch on the people I've been able to meet through you as well. And now I'm doing something a little bit above that.
Yeah.
So I started doing that when I was looking for a job, because when people follow me or I follow someone, I let them know why I follow them.
Yeah.
I try to look on the profile, what they're doing, then I will mention that when I'm sending message. Now, I have a real estate business. Most of the time, when people connect with me on Instagram, I look on their profile, and if it's someone that I feel like, okay, we're connecting on something, I send video of 1 minute now on Instagram. I will go to their inbox and send a video to them and say, hey, thank you so much for connecting with me. I don't know why you're here, but I hope whatever you're going to be saying on my profile will match what you're looking for. And I've received response from that. I do that even with mortgage brokers, with not just people that I think will buy homes or anything. Because you and I, we are friends. Yeah. I've never sold a home to you. You haven't bought a home for me. But we've connected in a very different way. The person I respect the most in real estate, Jas Tucker, I know this man through you. Like, I've never heard of his name ever. I've never seen his video until I reach out to you that, hey, Stephen, I'm going to be starting my real estate business. Content is one part I want to include in my business. And the response was, if you want content on real estate, follow Jas. And I did that, and he's the person I've learned a lot. I'm doing podcasts here today, to be honest. It came from his own teaching and mentoring and everything. So I truly, genuinely appreciate that part of you. Now,
can I say something on that? And I think this is important because you're doing things I don't think other people are doing. Nobody's taking the time to read anyone's profile, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn. Nobody's taking the time to say, hey, I saw that you did that, 10-week Harvard course. What did you like about it? Like, how valuable was it? Trust me, if you spend $10,000 on a course, you're dying to tell everybody about it and to talk to them about it. And the fact that you might take the extra time to tell somebody like, hey, I saw this, you're already standing out more than 99% of other people. And I don't think people realize the powerfulness of that. It won't work 99% of the times to get what you want, but you will stand out at the 99% of the times of the people, because nobody's doing that. Everyone's just sending a connection. A lot of it's automated, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And that's fine if that's the way you want to build your connections. But what you're seeing now too, when you do video, you are automatically getting the respect from a person like Jas who does that too. So he doesn't have to qualify you. He doesn't have to say, this person's willing to work hard, this is someone that I want on my team. He already qualifies you based on that video. So without you having to show him any of the work you've done, how many houses you sold, you've already passed the minimum threshold of this is someone that I can work with, because they're willing to put more value and effort without getting anything in return. Yes. And I think that's what people aren't doing. They're not showing the value and their work ethic in the conversations. They're just waiting until that person is ready to give them something, and then they'll work hard. Just like in jobs, right? Nobody wants to work hard until they get a raise, but if you just worked hard, but if you just worked a little bit harder before, that raise would probably come a little bit easier. And then the last part, and the thing that we joked about before we started recording, is the difference between being known well and being well known. I think many real estate people, many professionals trying to do content want to be well known. They want to be the Gary Vee. They want to be the Ryan Serhant. They want everyone to know them. But what Jas is doing really well is he's known well. I know exactly he's in real estate. I know he knows content. So I don't have to think when you say, hey, I want to do content in real estate, he's the first person I'm going to send you to. And I think that's what I think people are getting a little bit misconstrued about, because they see Jas, they're like, oh, he's so, well known, but no, he's known well. Same thing with Laura, right? Like if you're talking about fashion, if you're talking about, eating at certain like these are all things that automatically click. Yeah, they automatically click to you. And I think people need to start focusing on, hey, like what are my areas that I really love and I like to explore? And let me put out more content about that versus like, let me do more dances on TikTok to get more views. Which I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
If you're a dancer, it's not wrong.
I don't even think there's anything wrong if you want to do entertaining things, but are you trying to get more views, Or are you trying to narrow down your circle of the people that are like-minded like you? And this is why I encourage people to put out content about anything that they like. And and a lot of the content I put out there might be controversial to a lot of people, but what I've realized, they're like, oh man, you'll lose business if you say that. Well, that's just me, and why would I want to work with somebody that doesn't have the same kind of joking attitude that I do? I'm actually doing myself a favor, because I know any company that wants to work with me, they see my content. They're not going to be shocked by the things I say or the creativity I have. Once again, I've already gotten that minimum level of threshold that I don't have to explain myself to them. Where I think a lot of people pull out vanilla content trying to reach everyone, and then someone gets to know them and they're like, I don't want to work with that person. I've already done that vetting by just being myself, and I think that will help a lot more people if they can do the same thing.
You mentioned something that I really, really think is important: doing what you like. When I started content, obviously watching jazz, watching Gary Vee, which I think you also watch as well. The first video I put, I remember very well. I was nervous so much because I was thinking, what would people think about me? How would I talk? I'm an immigrant. Obviously, still showing my English that I'm an immigrant, and I'm proud of where I come from. Yeah. I'm not ready to change that, right? But I remember the first video. Guess one of the first I got.
Who's?
Jazz. Jazz. I remember the video very well, and I liked the video. I'm like, wait, if Jazz liked this video, what the hell do I think? And I've never reached out to him at that time. So when you connected me with Jazz too, what I did was I consumed his content for almost 4.5 months without saying hello to him. I created my first YouTube video 90% based on what I learned from Jazz. So, and the reason why I like that I connected with the guy is when I watch his first video, I know I like the way he talk. I like the way he joke. Yeah, sometimes he says something that people might not like. That's okay. Yeah. But 80 to 90% of what Jazz says, I like it. So I kind of connect with him. Now I started saying, okay, how can I also talk about my own things that I like? I love football. I've not been doing a lot of content around soccer. I think I have 1 or 2 videos there. It's something I will also want to talk more about, but I just like that idea. And then you talk about Laura. Laura talk about a lot of things that she likes, right? There are other things that people will not like in what she's saying, but you can see that she's putting what she loves out there. Yeah. And then people that want it will pick it. Those that don't want it, they move on. You do that vetting before you even make.
I think you said something very important. I think this is going to be like a masterclass. You're doing all the things that I've been preaching for years to do, and nobody ever does. You consume 4 months of Jazz's content before you reach out to them. The problem with most people, I think, they see one video of Jazz, they see he's popular, they see he's on stage, and they're gonna reach out to him and say, Jazz, how can I be a real estate agent just like you? That's what's gonna happen. We all have done it too. I've done it too. Maybe not to Jazz, but I've definitely done it. You see somebody, they're doing a cool podcast. How do you do a podcast like that? You consume 4.5 months of somebody's content. You consume 8 hours of somebody's content.
More than that.
Your question, I'm just saying, even if they spend 8 hours, an hour, your questions are so different. And I think the people that you've consumed their content, they realize the question. They know you've done the research. But if you ask Jazz, hey Jazz, what camera do you use? When Jazz has done 13 videos about what camera he uses, his people that are in the background, he already knows I'm not gonna spend too much time talking to Aziz because Aziz doesn't take the time to consume what I'm already talking about. So I'm not gonna spend any more time. He wants the quick answers. Aziz wants the quick answers. And this happened to me in the industry. One of the top executives at Circle, which is a stablecoin company, I reached out to him randomly and said, hey, like the article you did. And I'm like, hey, what do you think about financial inclusion? He's a black person as well. I'm like, what do you think about financial inclusion? Is cryptocurrency solving this? Because the number doesn't seem to be going down about the amount of people that are underbanked or unbanked. And then he sent me an article. And instead of me rushing back to say, hey, we should connect for a call, I was like, cool. I read that article. Boom, I went on the podcast app, iTunes podcast app. I just typed in his name, and every podcast he was on, I listened to while I walked. And then when I went back to him, I said, oh, this article is very cool. Here are the reasons why I find it interesting. But you also said this thing back when you were working at Facebook, and I found this interesting as well. of course he's gonna want to hop on a call with me now because he respects the fact that I'm taking my own time to answer my own questions. I think if people spend time answering their own questions, they would get so much further, but they're just looking for the easy answer. And I get it. I get it too, because I used to be like, I'm probably still like that sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I don't have time to figure this out. Like, how did you do these captions, right? And I think if more people did that, and what you learn is like, you've already answered your own question. You're probably just as much as a subject matter as 90% of the people out there, because you've already consumed 40 hours. You could probably run your own real estate content agency because you consumed all of his content. So of course he's gonna like your video. Not even because you consume his content, but he sees, oh, this person is taking my lessons and he's putting it in action. And those are the people you wanna be around. The people that will actually take your advice and put it into action.
Let's switch a little bit. I want to know how, because I know you know how to connect with people. You've learned that over the years. It's obvious. When I went to an event because you said you were coming to that event. I think I told you about that because I'm like, I'm going to meet this guy. I was like, I messaged you, why don't you come? And do you know the funniest thing was I actually met another 2-3 people there that I was able to connect with. So while I wanted to say, okay, I'm coming to that event because of you, I realized that it shouldn't be because of Stephen. Remember, I'm not from AML industry, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about AML until your first message. I know nothing about it. And when I went to that event, even though you were not there, that was when I met Susan. That was when I met Ovi, who was working with CIBC before. And that connection kind of grew to another level. I know a lot of people in that industry now, right? What do you think social media how do you think social media has been able to help your business, the company you run now, which we're going to still talk about in this podcast?
I think for me, it was just about all of my clients now, except for one, are people that I've just known in the industry for 5 or 6 years. We've been close, same thing. We've been connected, and then when the opportunity, I've never sold them anything. I've given them free advice on how to create their own content or adjust their own personal brand. They've helped me with like, hey, these are companies that are hiring in cryptocurrency and compliance. So when I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm doing my own thing, like I see that you're doing this, this is what I've done, like what do you think? Is this interesting to you? It was just we're just continuing the conversation.
Yeah, because it's kind of a friendly conversation.
Exactly. I think that's what social media, that's what LinkedIn especially is. People go on LinkedIn trying to make a sale. My strategy on LinkedIn is how can I start the conversation and then continue the conversation. And the perfect example is I'll start the conversation with you online, we'll go meet in person, deepen that conversation, and then I'll follow up online, strengthen that conversation. And then we're on WhatsApp, we can send pictures, I see what you're doing with your family, and I think people don't think like that because they're always looking for the sale. And I get it, right? As an entrepreneur starting out, well-paid job and now starting on my own business, like sales are extremely important. But what I've also realized is once you focus on one thing, like I just decide, hey, this is my ideal client. These are only the companies I want to work with. I think people, including myself 2 years ago, had a tough time walking away from money. So you were speaking with people that you probably don't like, didn't want to speak to, but there was a small potential chance that they may buy a house for you. And then you probably meet up with them, they take you around the 27 houses, never buy a house. And you're like, oh, I didn't even really want to be around that person to begin with, but I did it because I wanted money. But as soon as you make a decision like, no, this is my ideal client, these are the people I want to speak to, you'll miss out on some money, but you'll gain, your strategy gets more clear. And I think the money, like I have a belief system that the money will come if I'm doing what I love. Because my plan is, even if I don't have a client to create content, I'll just create more of my own content, which will bring in more clients.
You said something like, I think almost all real estate agents fall into that category. Almost all business owners. When we start, we want money.
Money, we need money.
Started, right? And she can confirm that. I've driven maybe 2-3 clients around. I can't call them clients now, actually. But I ended up helping them. And we show them like a lot of properties and they end up not buying it.
Yeah.
And I look back and say, there's something in that conversation that showed me that, no, this person, either they're not listening to what I'm giving them, I should have seen this. Now, I would say like a year ago now, in the last 12 months, I've told people that I think I might not be the one to help you. At least I've told 3 people, I think I might not be the one to help you. One of them came back because he realized that, okay, it seems this guy actually don't want to help me because there's something I'm not doing right. And when he came back, okay, it seems we're on the same page, right? We always make that mistake. I want you touch on leaving your good job, because I consume almost all your content as well. When I was coming this morning, there's one that I saw that you were talking about. Crypto has no real, and I saw a lot of people's comment. I'm like, I know what he's saying.
Yeah.
And that's because people might know me as a real estate agent or real estate business owner. They don't even know that I worked in IT before, but I know I love blockchain. From 2020, end of 2022, I think end of 2021, I spend minimum 6 to 8 hours every day researching about blockchain. And I'm not joking.
No, it makes
I don't create content around it, but I know a lot about it. And when you discuss it with people, and as you said in your post today, it has no use cases now.
Right.
It does not mean it's not. When the internet started, people that jumped on it, that don't know what they will use it for, they failed. But as time goes on, things started changing, right? As much as we're going to say, I want us to go into blockchain now. How was it when you were in legal field? Because I think when I met you, you left legal field, but not that long, and you come into AML, and your goal was you want to connect AML to blockchain. And I think today in Canada, and I can say this because I know, I don't think they're going to count up to 5 or 10 people that is in AML and blockchain that your name will not be there. Because I can see people you connected with on LinkedIn and they know what you're putting out there. How difficult was it for you to bridge that gap, AML and blockchain?
I think it was tough. I think it's still tough. I think I spent a lot of time just listening to people talk about it. I'm not great. I used to spend a lot of time reading, but I'm a visual person. So if I watch this video of me and you talking, I'll probably learn more about content than if someone gave me like an 85-page ebook about like how to create content, because I understand the nuances when people are talking. For me, the legal research and writing of being a paralegal is very much like doing an investigation at a bank and deciding whether you want to file a suspicious activity report on behalf of someone. And then, to be quite honest, a year and a half went by in my career at the bank, and I had stopped thinking about cryptocurrency. It wasn't until I took a course where the teacher was Peter Warwick, who happened to be the person that hired me at Bitfinex, but him and a colleague, they were still working at the bank, were talking about crypto. I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one that was kind of interested about crypto and compliance. And that was the reason why I took that course, is because I wanted to sit beside them. It was an in-person course. It was more expensive than all the other courses, but I wanted to sit beside the person that I thought was one of the best in the industry. And most people would take that course and say I got maybe no value of it. For me, it's been the best decision I ever made. And by learning what they were talking about, and he said one thing that caught me in the course, he's like, every morning I wake up and I read. I read about what's going on in the headlines. I read up about cryptocurrency. And in order to create content, you have to have a little bit of context. Right?
I learned that from you. There's one of your posts that you said, one of the things you like about content, because before you put something out there, you're going to have to learn it.
You have to learn it.
It kind of force you to learn also.
Exactly. And it's even doing this podcast, right? If you're preparing for this podcast, you're preparing to meet Jazz, you're learning about the subject probably just as much as people working in the field, because let's face it, if you're working most of your hours in the field, you don't have time to be learning on the side as well. You have the experience, but you're not always learning. And that's what I realized about crypto. To be quite honest, when I was a paralegal, I always felt that lawyers, you couldn't be better than a lawyer, right? They went to 8 years of school and they talked to you like you could not be better than the lawyer. And I really didn't like the vibe of that. And I thought to myself, you know what's interesting? I'm learning about cryptocurrency. We're starting at the same spot. This is 2015. He only could possibly have 4 years of cryptocurrency experience, even if he started the day that the first block was mined. I'm like, we're learning at the same speed. He can't go to 8 years of school to learn about cryptocurrency, so there's gonna be something that I can compete with him at. He's gonna have all the legal background and experience, but hey, we're learning at the same pace when it comes to cryptocurrency. And I think even, a little bit of AI now is like, hey, if you can learn at the same pace everyone else is, you have a little bit of an advantage. And I remember sitting in a boardroom and, after talking to him about cryptocurrency, after sharing my thoughts about cryptocurrency, he pulled up this one-page article about crypto being on, used for illicit activity. And this man talked as if like he had been studying cryptocurrency for 5 years. And I kind of just looked at him like, nah, this is not going to be the place for me.
What happened before crypto? They're using dollars to do all those things. Are you going to cancel dollars for that?
Honestly, I just think we're going to move more digital, whether that's cryptocurrency or just digital fiat currency. Because honestly, the last time anyone's seen someone pull out cash, slowly you've rolled your eyes in the back of your head, right? Like you said, like, come on now, it's McDonald's. Like, you know, put out your wrist, get your Apple Watch. Like, come on, we don't have time for you to tap a card. We don't have time for you to deal with cash. And I think, especially since the pandemic, like, I don't remember, like, I have cash on hand. You know, when you have kids, you don't have cash on hand if you're going to like a carnival or state fair or something like that. But the last time, I don't see people regularly using cash. And if anything, like even the people that are homeless have like Stripe that they're using to collect. And I'm not being sarcastic. This is what I'm seeing out there. You have to have that. Even like a small flea market, or I went to my son's school. They were having a fair in the gym. Like they had a Stripe card. You have a church bazaar. They have a Stripe card. So I just think not so much like cash is obsolete. I just think people don't. It's inconvenient now to use.
It is inconvenient. And what you said, I think we are moving more digitally now. You know,
we can't go backwards, right? We can't go back. No one's gonna say like, hey, I want to move around cash a lot more. You don't want to go backwards. You're not
and blockchain has, from my own perspective, and you know, you have more knowledge obviously than me. So I think the way people say blockchain, they only see crypto and see money. I see something more than that. You and I know a lot of things that are happening in that industry, including, you know, governance, voting. I think one of the advantages that I still think will be beneficial to people is the ability to vote and nobody can change it. Especially where I come from, I'm from Africa, a lot of our leaders, and this is not like shitting on my own people, it's the truth, it's the fact. Not only Africa, you know, some part of South America or North America as well.
US, yeah.
Know, there's a lot of voting, you know, malpractices and rigging that could happen.
Yeah.
I think blockchain is like the perfect solution for that. You have everyone will have their own unique address or, you know, ENS or whatever name service you want to use. You're voting, nobody can change Stephen's votes. And it's going to be there forever. I think that's one of the advantages I think blockchain has.
Which is why you'll never see that implemented by any government.
I feel like that. I think because they can't change it,
yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why they want to include that. Let's talk about, I still want to go back to your content. There's something you put out on LinkedIn, and I think it comes down to being, when you want to start content, you have to know your own, that you're vulnerable and things you want to put out there. Just to let you know that I really pay attention to you. There's something you said about your wife quitting her job when she was not happy there anymore. And it's rare for people to want to put that out there. And you weren't putting it there the first time, and the second one as well. I saw both. Yeah. The one you put out like a year and a half ago, and the one you put out recently about what's happening now. Because I learned a lot of things from that story. You put that thing out there, you weren't saying, hey, we want to employ my wife because she's living where she is. You're not putting it there, even though you could get her a job because of the kind of connection you've created. Right. You're just putting it there to say, hey, if happiness is not coming from what you're doing, it might be the time to take a little break or get out of it, because you said you confirmed your wife was not happy. Now, fast forward till now, a year and a half. You now came back again to talk about that decision, to say, why did we make that decision and how did we make it? Now, and you explain it. Yeah. You explain that it's not about, you're happy she left where she doesn't like. She's not happy about it. But you think it should have been handled in a different way because that affected your family financially. Yeah. When I saw that content, I'm like, I like the way you put it out there, not trying to sugarcoat everything. People want to say content that just talk about positivity. You talk about the struggle of she's not happy in the job, she quit the job, no real plan behind it, because I did the same thing, by the way. Yeah. And then she came back now, it affected you financially. Yeah. When you are putting that content out there, were you kind of worried about, one, should I be putting this kind of content? Or two, what will people say? Would they see me as a failure or see my wife as someone that is a failure as well?
What I realize is that people are going to make a decision. People already have a story about me and you having this conversation right now. People have made probably 3 or 4 judgments about the type of people that we are, and that's natural. We make judgments every time we see somebody on Instagram. If they're too loud, too quiet, showing too much skin, we've already made a judgment. And what I'd like to do is not tell people how they should do things, and I know it sounds like we're giving a lot of advice here, but I want to show people the thought process of behind what I do. So you don't have to like absorb everything I do. I always tell people, take what I say with a grain of salt, and this is a perfect example of why I say that. So I told my wife, you know, you want to quit your job, that's great. 3 months in, she's working out every day, she's feeling good, you know, but then like after 3 months, it's like, you know, we also have an expensive car payment, you know, like I just started my business, so I'm not making that steady income. Money's going out to pay vendors. I'm not getting my money in for a little bit later. I made some miscalculations on that first contract of how much money I'd actually be keeping after I paid my team. And I think it's great for people to know because exactly what you said, nobody wants to share those details, right? Everyone wants to show private jets, fancy cars, but in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, like I know how much a fancy car costs, so what happened behind the scenes? And I think that's why that piece of content was probably, that second post I made was probably the most viral content I've ever had. It's the most views I've ever had about content. Because I'm not scared to tell people like, hey, this didn't work out the way it should have. Right? Because I think everyone has that, right? Like when you said you did the exact same thing, I'm sure you thought it was gonna work out a certain way, you know, a deal fell through, you know, you had like 3 people that are like, yeah, I wanna buy a house, I wanna buy a house, and then nobody buys a house and you go from like $45,000 in commission to no commission, you're like, oh, now I have to rethink it. And I think it's also human. I think people resonate with that, like, hey, this person's not scared that someone's gonna judge him. I don't care. Like, you think my wife's a failure, you think we're a failure, that's great. I'm still laughing about it online. The fact that I'm not scared to show it online means I really don't care what I really don't care what you think of me, because I really know the reality is most people don't think. Most people do not think. They spend their whole lives reacting. They don't actually think. If you went around and said, even in this office, maybe this office is probably a little bit more of high achievers, but if you went there to the shop and like asked people what they want to do in life, like why do they wake up in the morning, what goals do they have, I guarantee you're not going to receive a ton of answers, right? It's going to be because I have to, because I have kids, I have to get a job, I have to pay bills. And I'm like, I don't think that way. And I didn't just, you know, I wasn't born that way either. I spent a lot, me and my wife both have invested and still invest a lot of money on personal development, personal coaching, life coaching. So I want to show people like, hey, we've already invested the money. Here's some things that we're learning. Here's some of the blocks that you might have. But like, why can't you share your story like that? Oh no, like, you know, Gary Vee always says like, Ricky Pants 42 is gonna say you're a failure. I'm sure a lot of people that don't like me, like the reason why that got views is because everyone that didn't like me was sharing it to every friend that they had to say, hey, look at Stephen, he talks so much about luxury cars and he can barely afford to, but I think it's good that I share, hey, you know, me and my wife are having a conversation and I'm looking at her like, where's that $1,500 Land Rover payment coming from? You're not working and I don't have the money. And I think it's okay to like sit there and cry and be like, oh, like we didn't think about it. It's okay for me to say, I had sleepless nights, I was worried about money. We've all worried about money. Me and my wife have barely worried about money for almost 10 years. And I think it's okay to share that, hey, you know, this is a time, because then if someone saw that first post and they didn't see the update, they'd be like, oh, Stephen told me to leave my job. That's the best thing. No, I want to empower my wife. Let me go leave my job. And then it doesn't work out. Who do you think they're coming for? They're not going to blame themselves. No, they're going to blame that black guy with the big nose on LinkedIn. And they're going to say, he told me that his wife was left his job and look how good they're doing. So I think it's so important. I'm dying for the updates. That's one thing people don't talk about. I think the second thing people don't talk about is the thing that we all struggle with life. What if we had a bad relationship? So what if we are doing good now? I say, hey, Aziz, here's a commercial deal that we can do together. It falls through, and now we're no longer friends. But we're buddy, we're doing podcasts, and then a year from now, we're no longer friends. Neither of us are gonna talk about it. I think we need to spend more time. What happened? Why aren't we friends? Did we not communicate enough when we were doing that deal? Were we too greedy? We were both looking at the money and we didn't see the red flags. Like, I think people need to start talking more about, hey, things went sour, things have gone sour. The Susan person you mentioned, things went sour between me and her for almost a year. But it's almost the best thing that ever happened. I wouldn't have a content agency today if it wasn't for what happened with her. So I think we need to start talking more about, and you see it online, right? Those people that are madly in love, and then 2 days later, plot twist, you know, I'm exploring the world on my own. It's like, well, what happened? Because I think if we talk about more about some of the failures that we have, people can actually learn from that versus saying, hey, like, I'm doing my own thing now. I don't need any man or I don't need any woman. It's like, well, people can't learn from that because you're pretending that you're happy now, even though you and your partner had a fight or you and your business partner, a deal went wrong. And Jas talks about this too. Exactly. I watch his content too when he was $300,000 in debt and his partner's like, Pete, deuces. And I'm like, that's what I need to learn about because that's something that could happen to me. Exactly. But if nobody's telling me to watch out for those pitfalls, who's gonna tell me that? these business coaches are saying sales, 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 work out, work out, work out, and that's how you get sales. Are they telling me like what happens when you and the other person aren't happy because you both went after the same deal, but only you got a spot on the stage and he didn't? Talk about what happens there. And Gary Vee, Jazz, they all talk about what happened in those instances. And I think if we talk about that more, we can learn more from each other. Just like money, I think everyone's so scared. If you see on LinkedIn when I post about money, you will see the most hateful comments about me being a materialistic person. You know, you're not happy because you're just gonna keep on chasing more money.
So, as I said, when you were talking about the story of, your wife leaving the job, that same thing happened to me. And I don't want to call it mistakes anymore because I know I learned from it and I know I'm happy I made the decision. So my last job I was fired.
Yeah.
My last job. It has a little bit of, here and there that I have to sue the company because it's related to, I don't like to use the word racism because I don't want people to think because I'm black, that's why I'm saying that. Actually, it was racism one of the reasons, and I want to let it go. But my friend was, no, this is not nice. So I sued them. That's idea of suing them, obviously they settled out of court and everything, we settled out. But when I was there, I was already asking myself, do I really want to continue this? My office is in my room, so I work from home. I've never been to that company. I work from them from home. When I get out of bed, the distance from bed to my office is just like 6 walk. And I feel like I'm traveling, like I feel, there are days I cried. She's here, she can confirm that I cried that I want to wake up. Now, when that firing happened, I actually wanted to resign. I didn't resign. When that firing happened, suing and everything. 2 weeks after I left the company, I got a job that I did interview, because as a data scientist, you need to do a project, that I did a project with a company in downtown. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to pay me, the first offer was $38,000 more than what I was earning. So, that money was big. Okay, I'm going to do it. We did the final one and I have to meet the CEO. They've liked me, but the CEO just want to have a conversation with me. And I told them that I'm not interested in it anymore. And the guy thought I was joking. He was like, okay, I'm going to give you 3 days. I think something, he came back 3 days. I said, no, I don't want the job.
Why? Why did you say no?
I just feel like it's like I'm changing from frying pan to the fire. Let me say fire to frying pan because obviously it's more money. But I know deep down well, like there are certain things there are some questions that I asked during interviews that make me to say that I'm going to get into that same problem as well. And I'm like, should I do it? Now, the funny part of that story is this. The third day he called me, I still said no. And, I left my last job in September 29, 2020. They gave me 9 days after my birthday to celebrate my birthday and kick me out. Anyway, September 29, 2020 was the last day I worked for any human being. And then I got those interviews and everything in October. Then they want to give me the job, and I said no. In December, I just got a call again from them. Then I was like, okay, I pick up the call. It was like, hey, Aziz, the person who interviewed and want to employ accepted our offer, supposed to resume yesterday. The same day, his company matched the salary we want to pay him, and he said he's not coming anymore. The CEO said I should call you first before I put anything out. God is my witness. In December. And he called me. And I said, okay, give me 1 day. Because he said, the good thing is we're going to add $10,000 more. So it's now $48,000 more than what I was earning before. And of course, I have to think about it. And he called me the following day. And I said, no again. And I went to the washroom to cry that day.
What were you thinking? Can I ask this? What were you thinking? Because
I don't know the second part here.
You were not, the day they called me the second time, you were not around that day. When they called me, when I went to the washroom to cry. But they called me in December, and I told you after, when you came back that they called me.
I don't know about the additional money though.
Yeah, of course I didn't tell you.
What were the conversations? I know this is what I want to hear.
$10,000.
Because I think this is what we don't see. We see you talking about this, we see me talking about this, but it's the conversation. What was the conversation between you and your wife about the money? Were you supportive, take it, or were you no, you don't want to be more unhappy?
You want to hear the crazy part? She wasn't working at that time too. She left the work as well because I said she should leave the work. So I'm making that decision with no income. Guess what happened? I drove Uber very well. Very well. Actually, I was doing Uber like once a week before but when that happened, first month I didn't get it because I still have some money in my account. Second month, not really. But the third month, the reality set in. And I was driving Uber. And then I started learning about blockchain. And then I know more about blockchain. And then people started paying me to teach them blockchain. Right? But blockchain was not what I think I'm going to use to make money.
Yeah.
So now, when I look back at that decision that I made, of course at that time when I went to the washroom, he was not at home when I went to the washroom to cry. But I cried because I'm like, what? Why did I say no? Apart from the reason that I felt like it's not really a good decision to still go work. Now, today I'm happy I make that decision. But at that time, it was a tough one. I think could be probably the best content to put out there.
It's a real, and I think why Jazz does so well is he talks the immersion program. Why I think it's well, and I haven't been in it, but I've seen enough clips to understand why that program and Jazz are successful. Is because he's not talking about real estate agent, buy your Mercedes Benz, go park out in front of the houses, all the stuff that real estate agents tell you what their life is like. He's talking about practical stuff. You have to pick up the phone and call people. You have to want to educate people. And this is the stuff that most real estate agents, most professionals don't want to hear about the work. But then there's going to be a small group of people, usually those 10 to 12 people, that are like, okay, we understand that there's content and everything, but we want to know how to do the practical work.
How to do the business.
The practical work, right? Because, everyone's talking all these kids, you hear it say online, $1 million, $1 million. $1 million with just you is extremely hard to do unless you're selling a course for $5,000 about how to make $1 million, and all you really need is 200 people if I did the math right. But if I did, but the reality is that most of you, I know this is running agency, you're gonna have to hire people. You're gonna have to deal with people. People think that, I'm gonna make $1 million and have a team of 10 people. Have you ever dealt with 10 people that you're paying to do work? Probably not. And this is why you know that Jas is coming from experience, and you'll be coming from experience, and the real estate agents that work around you, is because they're telling you the stuff. And this is how other people qualify you. Because when Jas is saying pick up the phone and have a database and have a CRM and make connections and follow up and educate people, the people at the top of the industry that are at the top of the industry know that Jas is a winner because he's talking about the things that actually make you a winner. People are talking about the things that make other people think that you're a winner. Jas is talking about the things that actually make you the winner. I think I even have the shirt. Oh no, maybe not today. But I usually have a shirt that says the winners are watching. And this is what confuses people. People are like, how can I get more views and more followers on LinkedIn? And the first question I always say is, why do you want more followers? Oh, more reach to do what? Why do you need more reach? Why don't you spend more time talking to the people? And this is what I do, and I think what you do and what Jas and other people, why don't you spend more time talking to the people that are already connected with you? Exactly. Everyone wants more reach so they can use that number to try and leverage, like, hey, look how much reach I have. I should get a brand deal, or look how many followers I have. List with me because more people will see it. But like, are those people the people that are actually gonna buy?
The funniest thing is, there are a lot of successful people that I know personally on internet that they have low number of followers. Even the man we're talking about, he doesn't chase the number of people that will follow him, right? And people look at the views and the followers as this person is smart. This person knows what they're doing. Let's come back to your business. I know the video as well you put out when you started your business. I remember the video, very funny and really straight to the point. Because I remember at the end of the video, the lady that was there was like, how are you going to get clients? You're like, I'm going to figure it out. And that's life. That's what a lot of winners always say. You don't need to think before you start. Of course, you want to start something, but overthinking it will not get you to this. What have you learned? Tell me about airdrop. I believe that's the name, right?
Airdrop, with a D at the end. I think exactly what's happening. Exactly what's happening here is that you have to expect the unexpected. You think things are going to go a certain way. I think a lot of the mistakes I made was just not listening to other people that I hired to make better decisions than I would have. There's a lot of people that are in this industry that said, hey, I wanted to be creative and show clients what they could have if they sign and spend a lot of upfront money. And clients came around like, oh no, we don't really like that. I'm like, oh, well, I just spent $3,000 realizing they don't like that. But I have people on my team like, do not send them anything, get the vision, and then we'll create. But I'm like, oh, no, trust me, they're going to love this. So I think sometimes just sitting back, and then I think, as I said before, it's just like the vision. Who do I want to work with? What am I going to be doing? And sticking with that. Every time that I've made a decision like this is what I want, then things slowly start. You're gonna miss on a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of money that flows around in content creation. And the last thing is that, and you probably realize this too, is like, sometimes you have to say no to clients. And I think that's the hardest thing. You just have to walk away from paying clients. And I think what you'll realize is that people talk, right? So if they know that you're willing to take a lesser amount, they're gonna tell their friend like, hey, Stephen can do this at half the value or half the price.
Or they can get someone on Fiverr.
And I always say to people, is like, yeah, you can. Fiverr will do exactly what you tell them to do. You weren't paying Jazz. If you could get someone to do exactly what Jazz was doing for other people, but do they know real estate? Do they know context about what clip is gonna sound the best? Do they know what questions to ask the people so you're not just sitting there reading off a bunch of questions that get no value from the conversation? There's level to this, right? There's a reason why there's an NBA and then there's a G League and then there's levels to everything that you do. Yes, you could get a bunch of people off the schoolyard to play basketball, but that's not gonna fill the stands either. So you have to balance of what you value. And what I realize is a lot of these companies are spending money on conferences because it felt good when they were sponsoring a conference. Everyone wants to take them out for dinner. Everyone wants to take them out for dinner. They're bawling in the conference. Oh yeah, our booth is over there. They want the feeling of they could care less if they got clients or didn't get clients. They told their managers and the C-suite that they wanted. That's there for getting clients. But really, it's just for them to have an enjoyable experience, get taken out for drinks. And hey, if that's where they want to spend their money, that's fine. But what I've realized is like, you're sitting there at a conference across from 7 other booths that are your direct competitors, instead of going on places like LinkedIn where none of your competitors are doing any kind of content, and you can spend all day, the whole year there. You're only gonna get that engagement for 3 days at a conference. So we actually help clients try to use some of that. We're not saying don't sponsor a conference or don't have those initiatives.
You do come to conferences.
Exactly. So we try to take some of that money. Maybe don't go to every conference this year. Take one conference. Let's put that money into some LinkedIn engagement, some video content, because this content will last a lifetime. You've watched videos from Jazz that he did 2, 3, 4 years ago. That content lasts a lifetime. You're just meeting him now, but that content is from way back then. But now it feels like you already know him because you've seen that content, and I think that's what companies fail to realize is that content stays there forever. That one time that you did a conference back in 2018, like they might feature you as a past sponsor, but other than that, you're not getting any value from that 2 years ago. But now you could have 4, 5 thought leaders using that same money from your team.
Exactly. Let me round it up, and I'm going to ask one question in 2 ways. I listened to one of your podcasts, the one you did with Jazz, and another one again. You talk about how you kind of put yourself into the shoe of immigrants when they come here. What advice would you give new immigrants? When I mean new, people that are just coming in or they are in already, what advice would you give them to be able to, especially with job markets, to get started? And the second question, I want to really put the question together, is a new business owner that is starting. Quick advice would you give them?
All right. First, I'll start with the foreign. First, I'll start with foreign professionals. So I don't know if you remember, we did 3 events for foreign professionals because what I realized in Canada is that you come here, you don't know anybody, you're not rubbing elbows with the top people in the industry. So we actually put together an event where we had 10 mentors come in, 10 just really high-level professionals that you could actually go meet at an event where you don't feel shy because they're there to actually come meet you, introduce you. What I would do if I'm new, if I'm coming from Africa and I'm new to Canada, I'm finding everyone that looks and resembles me. So there's gonna be tons of associations, whether it's Africa, whether it's Europe, there's gonna be tons of associations here of other people that took the journey just like you did. That would be the first place I stop in at, because those people already have connections here. Those people have already gone through the same things that you're gonna go through, right? Finding housing, what events to go to. The second thing is, before I even move here, I'm building connections on LinkedIn.
I did that.
I'm building connections on, and I'm not saying, hey, find me a job, and when I get to Canada, I'm getting a visa. I'm just building connections. Hey, like, what's the market like out here? Hey, I saw you moved, and same thing. I'd be finding people that look like me, but then I would be going out and seeing who else they can connect me to. But I think a lot of people don't do that. They come here, and I think I would remove any sense of entitlement. And I'm not saying a lot of immigrants have entitlement, but I think people like come here and they're like, well, I need help. Or I heard someone on LinkedIn say you're gatekeeping success, and it's like, they don't owe you anything. They've had to go through their own struggles. I had to learn this the hard way for 8 years. I'm saving everyone a lot of time. You're saving, and I was born here, and I realized I was born here, but I'm also still black. So I'm not confused by the fact that I may not get all the opportunities. but I'm also gonna put myself in the position. So you could say, I'm black and I'm an immigrant, I'm not gonna get any opportunities in real estate, everyone's driving around in these fancy cars and I don't see people that look like me. Or you could be the first person that says, hey, I'm gonna do exactly the same things that got them success, I'm gonna do that. And automatically, exactly what happened, you get the respect of people and your peers because they see that you're putting in an effort. But you could say, hey, I'm an immigrant, come help me, where are the organizations? And this is what I see a lot of people doing. They complain that they're not getting the opportunities, they complain that they're not getting the help. And then in entrepreneurship, I think you have to just spend sometimes a little bit of money reaching out to people that have already done businesses. And this doesn't have to be these gurus that you see on Instagram that are saying they're gonna make you, they went from $6 to $6 million in 3 days because they did faceless Facebook or Instagram pages. But there's gonna be someone that you look up to. Jazz Sakar is a perfect example. He's putting out content, he's really cool, but he's not at the time, he wasn't paying, you didn't have to pay anything to interact with him. Me, personally, if I'm new to business and I see someone like Jazz that's exactly where I wanna be, I'm flipping open my wallet and I'm getting $500 and saying, hey, Jazz. Better yet, I'm finding 10 other people just like me that want to learn from Jazz and say, hey, guys, why don't we all put in $250? That's $2,500. Let's get Jazz to come and spend a day with us teaching him. And if you went to Jazz and you gave him $2,500, two things would happen. One, he knows you respect his time. Two, he might even be such a good guy that he's not even going to make you pay, but he respects the effort that you've put in to get to him. And then three, what's probably going to happen is he's probably going to spend more than a day. And what you've done is you've added value, not only to yourself, but to those 10 other people. Because the next time you have that event, there's gonna be 10 other people that wanna join in and learn from Jazz. All of a sudden now Jazz could be making $10,000 to have 50 people in the room, but you've only ponied up $250 and you're learning from the best. But I think what a lot of people do in business is they don't know exactly what they want to do. They wanna be a real estate agent, but they don't.
They want to make money and ride Ferrari. They know what they want to do. They just don't know that what they're saying on social media is not the real thing.
And it's funny because I think real estate is one of those businesses it's just like content creation. It's like you have to, if people learned how much effort that you and other real estate agents don't get paid for, right? The 27 showings that you never got paid for, that you spent 2 hours commuting for, another 2 hours there, that's like 104 hours that you did not get paid for. But then you get a big payday and everyone's like looking at you like, look at this real estate agent showing off. And you're like, I just spent 400 hours the last 3 months working where I didn't get any money, and now you think that if you really broke it down, most real estate agents and most content creators are probably making a minimum wage. They just doesn't feel like that because you enjoy it, right? You enjoy going out there. You enjoy helping probably new immigrants or new people buying a house, find an area or find that unlisted house or that off-market house. So you're not counting every single dollar and every single hour that you're working. So I think in people that are new to business is that you have to do a lot of the things that people aren't going to do. And if you're a real estate agent, you have to talk to everybody.
And you have to, you said something that I really like. I learned that from, listening to people that I want to be with, that I want to do what they're doing. Find someone that is doing exactly what you want to do. And you can know people that are shitting around, either when you meet them, and learn from them. The first time I met, and I know we've mentioned Jazz's name probably 20 times, and that's because it's going to be totally part of my real estate journey for the rest of my life. The first time I came to meet him at this office, before I joined this brokerage because I know him. Right. The first time I came here, at the reception, I found my name there saying, welcome Aziz. And I'm like, wait a minute, why would he put my name there? Who am I? That, before I walked the 20, 30 seconds to his office, I just have, despite the fact that I know I respect this guy, I have more respect for him that way. And he brought me in, sat me down, brought Laura, introduced me, talked to me like he has known me for a long time. So, and when I learned that, that's one of the things that I feel like I want to continue to put out there when I have my own team as well. And as I said, learn from someone you want to be and, add a little bit of your own thing on it, but learn from them first, right?
And there's 10 other jobs. I see a person named Mark Soler, and I don't know if he's big in real estate, but I see him. He's like doing ice plunges, and he's in Miami and showing properties out there. There's like tons of people that that they're not just living this life on Instagram to get you to buy a house from them or list for them. This is really their life. They're just showing you glimpses of it, and you're like, hey, I want to be like that. It may not be exactly like that, but they do content and they do real estate. There's only going to be about 15, 20 people that you really like. That's so easy. Exactly. To me, following 15 and 20 people, researching them for maybe a few months, and then getting to know them and then having conversations with them is way better than like spray and praying on LinkedIn or Instagram and just sending automated messages, which is what happens, right? You're new to the business, you send all, and then they wonder, and I think Jazz and Laura talk about this, when they had their first event, it was a bunch of cold leads and nobody showed up because
I think they said one person actually showed up.
nobody showed up. And from that point on, you realize, like, I want to work with the people that have a vested interest in me. They've researched me, and it may not be a lot of people. And that's the thing. People want a lot of LinkedIn followers. Half of those people in my follower list, I have no idea what they do. They've never responded to any messages that I've ever sent them. And they share, and like I reach out and say, hey, thanks for the support. Never receive a response. I have no idea why they're even following me. But you want a lot of those people? Are those people ever gonna hire AirDrop to do content?
Exactly.
Probably not. Are those people telling people like, hey, Stephen, here's an opportunity of a company that just got funding. You should probably reach out to them if they see they need help with their branding? Probably not. I think if people just focus on building meaningful connections and meaningful relationships, they would be a lot successful as a real estate agent, they would be more successful than 90% of the people in the industry, but they don't want to do that. I think we all have a tough time with delayed gratification. We want the hits to say, hey,
Instagram.
we want the instant everything. And I think that's hurting a lot of people, especially real estate agents. That's hurt, especially when these times come. Like, I don't see a lot of you driving around like you were before. I don't hear about the trips to Dubai and everything like I was hearing before. And it's okay to say, hey man, I was balling, but I realize as a business owner that when things are good, I have to remember that there's always going to be downtimes and I have to prepare for those times. Those are what real business owners and real entrepreneurs are going to tell you. They're not going to say, hey, you sold a house, go, take a trip to Dubai, spend all that money in Dubai, and then when tax time comes around, you forget that, oh yeah, you still owe the government 30% of what you made just because you're self-employed and like, these are real life stories. A lot of these people that you see, and I know some of them, they're balling. Ask them to show you a tax form over the last 6 years, and I guarantee you won't even see one. You know why? Because they haven't filed taxes, and their paychecks are coming in, their aunties, and these are real life situations, and nobody's gonna talk about that, and I'm not gonna name who these people are, but we all know that person. They're balling about $7,000 deposits, and they're reaching out to you on the low, talking about some pyramid scheme where they're getting the money from the cloud. And I think that's what we have to really take a hard look at ourselves and say, hey, is this person a business operator? Not an entrepreneur in their LinkedIn or Instagram profile. Are they an operator? And if so, how do they operate their business? And that's one question every time I go to a conference, I say, how do you make money? Because I'm interested, I'll tell you how I make money too. I'm not here just to take notes. But like, you ask a person at any blockchain conference, how do they make money? I think you'd be surprised about the kind of answers you get, because I don't think a lot of them know how to make money, or they don't even know how to explain how they're making money. And if they tell you about some future project or some future NFT or some future thing that's going on or some commercial property that's going up in 4 years that they might make $1 on, I think you'd realize, like, oh, if you just ask people certain questions, the problem is nobody's asking those questions. They're asking, what dealership did you get that Ferrari at? Or, they're asking you, who did you use for your social media presence? These are the questions that they're asking. Wow. Instead of saying, hey, like, how did you get your first 100 customers? Jazz, how did you get your first 10 houses? Because I guarantee if you walked around asking a bunch of real estate agents how they got their first 10, you're gonna know the difference between someone that's really made it and someone that's pretending to make it on Instagram.
Exactly. Stephen, I genuinely appreciate a lot of things that you mentioned today. I'm learning things from our conversation, and I'm gonna watch the video again to learn more. I appreciate everything you've done for me today. The camera, did his own thing, 2 cameras, but you're still here. We're still able to finish it. To round it up, is it LinkedIn people can connect with you to do business with you, AirDrop, or is there any other place they can?
LinkedIn is always a place. As you said, it's either 24. If I don't respond within 24 hours, follow up because something went wrong. I always say 24 hours is my response time. Even people like trying to sell me things, I just feel like people deserve a response. LinkedIn is a place to follow me. The company AirDrop, it's AIRDROPD.io, and we got a ton of our projects and the stuff that we do. I don't even really promote. What I've realized is I don't even promote my company that much, because if you like what I'm saying and you like what I'm doing, you see the content I put out. Either you want to work with someone that does that content, or not. I don't have to promote that we're going to do anything special or that we're going to get you 10,000 followers in 3 days, because the reality is when you're creating content, you just never know what's going to hit, but you know what's going to engage people and what's going to get people talking.
Do you work only on content related to blockchain, or you do like AML or any other thing?
My intersection's usually anything at like the blockchain, Web3, crypto, and anything to do with like compliance, even education. We work with Seneca College down the street here as they're releasing new programs. I like doing video production work. We like to stay in our hub, but there's also people I know that I'm like, oh man, if we could just use our team to help you kind of amp up your stuff, we sometimes will do some side projects for people. We try to stay away from that as per my vision, but then when people are doing cool stuff, you just want to kind of help them out sometimes. But I want to thank you. I don't think I'm gonna gain a big real estate following after an episode like this, but I think people really know what I'm talking. It's not just real estate agents. I think you can replace real estate agents in this whole conversation, and you can replace it with any profession, and people know exactly what we're talking about.
I appreciate that, and I think, as you said, winners are watching. So,
that's all you have to.
And we watch you, and you watch other people as well. So, and I hope in a couple of years when we're going to do another episode, we're going to have more stories.
Jazz was watching you when you did your first video. The winners are watching. Everyone looking for the next real estate agent that's going to get 100,000 followers. They weren't watching, but the winners were, and that's what's most important.
Thank you so much.
All right.